this little area is the esophagus. That's where we enter in. Normally it would go into the rumen here, and then into the reticulum, but there's these two small, like, muscle parts that would close over.
Yep.
So if I use the pen, it goes into the esophagus, and you can see that the muscles could tighten and close over that, so it misses the rumen and reticulum altogether and goes straight into the omasum.
Yeah, very good. Leave that pin right in there.
Omasum or omasum?
It's going to go straight into the omasum and then into the abomasum. Yeah, exactly right. So that's good. You see that little pin there? If I'm going to ask you about esophageal groove, we would have a pin very distinctly in one of those little folds that you can see there. I would almost all the time use a probe of some kind, whether it's this pin or a probe or whatever stick, whatever it might actually be that I have at the time, then you can distinctly know. If I'm over here where you can see this little very distinct pattern of the reticulum, then you have to answer reticulum. So I will be clearly in that portion. If I'm going to ask you reticulum, I will clearly be where you can see, of course, all of the, now, of course, after it's been frozen and thawed 2 times, it's starting to fall apart. That mucosal lining is starting to separate away. But this is, of course, the papilla of the rumen. So this is distinctly different than the rumen. Of course, where does the rumen transition? It's all, this is rumen, reticulum, as you can see where that esophageal groove is. But I would be way out here in this portion here when I'm asking you about rumen. So I'm going to be careful when we thaw this and make sure I leave a little bit of those papilla so that you can easily identify it. And then, of course, just right underneath there, nice job, by the way, on the esophageal groove. Then we come here into these little folds and all of these flaps and all of these plies, a little bit of that material left in there. So all of these flaps, again, are part of the omasum, squeezing out all of the moisture, reabsorbing it. Material gets a little drier. We can't see that here now because, of course, we've thawed this out and soaked it. But then we would come down into the true stomach, called the abomasum. Smooth, thick, again, kind of a muscular structure. Glandular tissue, looks just like any other stomach that you would see on any other animal. You can feel how thick this is. I don't think I listed this as one of your parts, but you guys remember from lecture, what's this region of the stomach? The pylorus. This thickened area here is the sphincter. So that's that smooth muscle that's controlling the flow of things out. So if you had trouble remembering that pyloric sphincter, you can kind of feel that as we enter into and material comes in to the duodenum, jejunum, ileum, yeah, down in here. So this is what we refer to as the terminal ileum, where it empties into and essentially stops being small intestine and goes into large intestine. And so one thing you can kind of appreciate too is the length of the small intestine in a ruminant tract. And so we counted them yesterday and you kind of estimated it's probably around 50 feet in a young little 4-month-old lamb. We get to a mature sheep, or sometimes easily in the 80-90 feet. A lot of length of small intestine. So even though they're really advanced at doing fermentation and all the capacity they have in their foregut, they do a lot of absorption in the midgut. These guys are well prepared to get all of the nutrients they need if they don't get a lot of feed. Again, if you're a grazing animal, sometimes there's years where there's drought. The feed is very slight. They can get a lot of nutritional benefit from that. Compared to the bird, again, you look, that tract is really small. They eat more feed and they digest it very fast, and then they get it out of their tract. These guys are all about the efficiency of how well do you get, nutrients out of what they've actually consumed. It comes into this region here. This is our blind pouch, where things go in, they sit there, and they have to come right back out the same direction. That's called the cecum. Yeah, so that is a cecum. Very enlarged, very well proportioned to, again, allow for even more fermentation down here in the hindgut. Not nearly to what a horse would be. And we haven't gotten a chance in this class to do a horse. I think they'd probably fire me if I ever did one in the class. But yet, again, big, this would be huge. I mean, it would just be bigger than proportionally even what the rumen is. I mean, in a large hindgut fermenter like the horse, this would just be a massive big structure, and so it would be really well developed. But as we continue here, this is really where that cecum transitions into the colon. So I would be looking at something in the middle here. You could say colon. That's just really the term for that portion of the large intestine. And then as we get down towards the end, I will be definitely in the end. That would be the rectum, where things are being prepared to exit the body. And she doesn't really have any of that left in there, this specimen, but yet a lot of times in a sheep you can feel the little nuggets of the, the little pellets that she's forming. And some of you worked around sheep and goats, that's the form that they're actually, again, defecating out.
Your rectum is even here, it's not like part of the descending colon? Like, I reckon won't be like this far away down.
I don't think we cut that much off. I think they got to that end. I think she was, again, either not forming really distinct pellets or just because we soaked it so many times it all softened up. And that may be where we've thawed this tract out a couple of times, and so we're losing the integrity there. So any questions on the ruminant tract? So again, I don't have esophagus really easily able to ask here, but I have all of the same segments of the small intestine, large intestine, somewhat similar to what we have, but mostly I'll use the avian tract to ask you avian stuff and general stuff here on this tract. But again, 4 chambers of the ruminant stomach. And then the